Hello everybody, Paul Matthews, founder of Neuro Protocol. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for checking us out. In our first video here, I really wanted to try and open up and share a little bit of background and experience and some of the motivation behind what we're trying to do. So I want to start really by sharing a little bit of detail surrounding the history and the background of kind of how this all got started, which is unfortunately deeply rooted in a very, very dark journey that I went through personally, which involves a good portion of my youth and adult life suffering from chronic lumbar pain. So I started when I was essentially in middle school and playing football to experience, some intermittent, sharp neurological pain into my spine. There's no question that the contact and some of the injuries and whatnot from football, had a role in this, but it wasn't in my mind and going back through it by any means the root of a lot of these problems. The real cornerstone of issue here was rooted in a series of injuries that were sustained when I was young, none of which should have been life-altering. But like many of the things that I continue to see in my practice these days, what seems to be happening is that many of us suffer from an injury that oftentimes doesn't heal right. And when I'm talking about that, I'm really talking about specifically the neurological pathway, the physical path of a nerve being impeded, oftentimes as a result of a muscle tear or pull or even a contusion of some kind, but inevitably a period where maybe the most critical piece of information that has really seeped into my current understanding of the body, which is pushing through pain is a very, very, very potentially scary thing to do, especially when you do it long term. Pain is by nature information. It's a warning system. It's essentially the smoke detector, if you will. And you think about how many people nowadays ignore it, or they take things to turn off that sensor, which disrupts our ability to feel and to connect to our body, which is unfortunately becoming all too common. Something I did quite a bit when I was young. In fact, just about everything that we're going to talk about and get into, I did not do. I have made just about every mistake you can possibly imagine. Lifting, training. I was a pretty, pretty intense lifter, and I faltered into some of the patterns and habits that a lot of people do. And ultimately, over a period of time, this led me to a point where I sustained a series of imbalances that led to a long-term pattern of being in chronic back pain. I continued to push through pain. I continued to weight lift, strength train, and do a number of idiotic things throughout high school and throughout college. And simply put, I wound up in a place at 22 years of age in which I was being told I needed to have the first of eventually 2 spine surgeries. I didn't know a whole lot at the time. I gave in, I had it done, and I'll never forget sitting across from this guy like a month out, being in so much worse pain than I was prior. Not a single thing that they said went the way it was supposed to. And it was like the first time in my life I realized that I was screwed and that no one was going to get me out of this situation. Nothing that they had said went the way it was supposed to, and now I found myself in a scenario where I didn't know where to turn. And it was a dark time in my life because at this point, the only thing that was probably attached to my identity and made me happy in all truth was training. It was lifting, as silly as that is. But think about how many of us, our body, our movement is so deeply tied to how we feel about who we are. And for me, that was really the beginning of this journey. I realized that when you took that away from me, I didn't know who I was anymore. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation. Because I have been on a deeply, deeply rooted journey to get back to where I am now, which is to move again. And not just to move, but to move often, to move well, and to do things that I've been really missing since I was essentially a teenager. And in the end, I'm so grateful to be here and be able to share this, and I look forward to dropping a whole lot more information on you guys. So Stay tuned for more.